success. And I know this is a really broad word, considering all four of you come from extremely different walks of life, with your own stories, with your own struggles, with whatever has been life for you. Let me start with you. You established your brand here, DEME. How was it like setting foot in this country, let alone setting foot in this venture, just trying to adjust to the change?
I feel like India for me has always been very welcoming, both from a modeling point of view and then from transitioning into being an entrepreneur and brand owner. It's definitely different from anywhere else in the world, but I feel like that difference comes with a lot of positivity. People are very warm, so it's not as hard to do business here. A lot of people have this perception of India that there's a lot of red tape and it's really difficult and people are so hard to work with, but I actually found that it was the complete opposite. I don't know if I was lucky in that sense, not that it didn't come with struggles, it definitely did. But I feel like it's a great place to start a business for a young woman, for any woman, actually for anybody. So my experience in that sense has only been good.
You were the founding member of this. It's a CSR fringe end of Yes Bank. What was your experience?
So I believe that it's not necessary, like only being a woman, that you get these ups and downs and a lot of downs. It is all part of life. And unfortunately, when you're younger, I wish somebody told me that life is going to be a mix of this, because everybody says, wish you happiness, and you assume that your life is only going to be happy. And then suddenly when you get the first punch, and you're like, why me? Why did I get this?
What was your first punch like, really?
First punch, many. I can't even remember. But I remember that I joined a management college straight after graduation at Xavier's. And I got into that college with much difficulty. So the reason I took that college was because I didn't have to pay a bribe. Most other colleges, they were asking for, at that time, 20 years ago, 2 lakhs and all was big.
My God.
Yeah, so I took it. But being the first batch of that college, we didn't really get placements. So, you come out of management school thinking that you're going to conquer the world. And I was sitting at home for like 4 months. Wow. Yeah, so that was the first blow. But then I realized, and at that point in time, I was thinking I must join a big brand and have this, because it's all about, salary after campus. But I realized it's not really about all this branch, and it's about what kind of experience you get and the exposure, and you take it and you make the most of it. Right. So that was my first. Yeah.
And Kubbra, you, on the other hand, have had the kind of career where you started out emceeing, and you, by extension, ended up meeting people from different walks of life because you had to speak on behalf of a lot of them.
Before I even started emceeing professionally, I used to depend on the formidable handshake because I used to belong to the corporate world. And it's very true because I understand where you're coming from. 20 years ago, it was 2 lakhs. Even 10 years ago, it was 2 lakhs. Yeah. So 10 years ago, 2 lakhs. So I chose to join, a not so recognized management college, right? And soon after, the kind of job offerings I was receiving was for the call center jobs.
Oh.
And that is in Bangalore, and that was on the rise. So again, I'm going to come back to what you said. And it's true that most people define success by what you make, what your paycheck is.
Yeah.
And I realized that it's great. I'm going to sit behind a screen with a headset. I'm going to have conversations with people who I can't see and who can't see me. Right. But my paycheck is going to be, say, 25,000 rupees a month, which when I consider is going to be a good payback for all the money that has been spent on my education. Eventually, you will pay back, you will get married, move on.
More like you established a system for yourself, and
that's basically how you think. If you are from a middle class family, it's simple. It's simple commerce. It's economy. The economics of being successful.
Right.
There is no emotion to be successful. It's the economics of being successful. But then there was something that triggered, and I said, no, I want to move out of the country to have a formal work experience.
Okay.
And after working in 8, 9 different places, I ended up at Microsoft.
Oh.
And then I ended up adding emotion to success, which was when I go back home after hosting a show, I feel happy, I feel comfortable, and I somehow have sweeter dreams than what I would have if I went back to work every single morning.
Right.
And that is when I took this leap of faith, which was a calculated risk. Again, the economics of being successful.
Right.
And I said, if I move to Bombay where I don't know anybody, I'm going to give myself 6 months. I'm going to move with savings. And if it does not work out according to my plan, I'll go back to working again with a formal company or a corporate job. But thankfully, the emotion and the drive to be successful, to follow your dreams was so high
Right.
that I didn't have to go back to another corporate job.
So 6 months became the rest of your life thus far.
Well, so far, so
Yeah.
it seems. And maybe one day I'll be an entrepreneur.
It's been 3 years for you, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure it has been a bunch of years before those 3 years to really come to the point to start those 3 years, right?
Absolutely. When I chose to go to art school, I literally tossed a coin when I was 18 because I couldn't decide what I wanted to do.
Like there was a coin and you tossed
Literally, it was art school or humanities, like study psychology, economics, that sort of thing, or go to art school. I was like, okay, tossed a coin, went to art school, and I trained as a sculptor. And the whole time I was there, there was something that was missing for me in terms of contemporary art, and that is functionality. Like, you see all these beautiful things, but what's the purpose? And of course, like when it comes to art, there's so much you can talk about. But for me personally, I wanted to create something that you can live with every day. So I moved back to Bombay, and I was working with an architect, Ashish Shah. He's fabulous. And I was working on sculptures and art and like different things. And I started, like, even when I was in university, I made these tiny little things, weird looking sculptures that I'd wear.
Okay.
And every time I'd wear the piece, people would be like, oh my God, that's so cool. Can you make me one? And that just kept happening. And I was like, okay, you know.
You would just sit on the side and like do your little thing
Yeah, I'm
and
just
then...
going to do my little thing and wear it. And it just, that's sort of how it started.
Right. That's the
Yeah.
thing about passion, right? It just sort of finds its place in your life.
Yeah, you find it. But I feel like it's a little bit of, you know, it's not immediate. I feel like most people that find their passion, it's a little bit of an accident.
Yeah.
Where you're doing something, you're like, wait, I really like this. And then you start doing it and you're like, wait, I'm actually pretty good at it.
Yeah.
You know? But the truth is, and you know, she talked about how it was difficult entering a corporate world as a woman. The truth is, even as a designer, it's difficult. And I remember when I started to interact with like craftsmen and build my team,
Right.
like the first time I got asked, so where's your mom? I'm like, you know.
For what joy?
My mom is not designing the jewelry, I'm designing the jewelry. But that's the thing, and I feel
So
like
they just made a face value judgment.
this is a standard thing in India. If you are a young woman who is not married, the first question is, where is your mom? Where is your husband? Where is your father? Who should I talk to?
Let's protect the little girl.
Yeah, and you know, I feel like in my case, I do look a little bit younger than I am. So it's great when I'm 50, but for the moment, like when I started, it's like, hey, you know. So it takes, you know, I think as a woman, you have to work a little harder to get people to take you seriously.
Okay, so here's an interesting point I want to highlight. Whether you're an artist or you're a corporate entrepreneur, you go through your own journey where they constantly hammer this idea inside of you that you have to be better than your own self and you are your only competition. And then, because you pointed it out, you see the rest of the world and you sort of take cognizance of where you're at. So that's a struggle in itself. What is that one characteristic about you, each one of you, that really helped you be able to stick your ground about, you know what, this is my journey, and it is not going to be hampered because there is this world outside, this devil of a world outside? Let's start with Gabriella.
You know, I think, and I'm going to talk on the point of social media because I think that that's a very valid topic right now for all of us. And I've seen this sort of trajectory of how we all base our lives on it and live our lives on it. And I think it becomes very difficult for young women, young men to sort of live up to this expectation of, you know, being in the Maldives on a paid vacation and, you know, all of these influencer things that we see in this very unrealistic universe that we've created for ourselves. And I think it's really important, especially if you are in the film industry, the fashion industry, even the corporate industry, to sort of have a very strong grasp on reality. Right. So when you ask me what that characteristic for me would be, I would say that my one really strong attribute is making sure that I'm always super grounded, and not really getting caught up in all of that, because you can really get lost in it. So that is one thing that I have been trying to do over the last couple of years, is because I myself am a lot on Instagram, on social media, and I feel like having to pull back now and then because it just creates some sanity.
True. Kubbra, if I have to ask you, you know, your world to my eyes, and this is strictly an audience speak, has been fairly like, wow, what an eventful life the woman has had, and it's success after success, and look at her, she's been everywhere. I know there is a reality behind it, there is a struggle behind it. So taking on from the social media point, how do you refrain from that noise and keep your reality alive?
So first of all, I think there is this glory that we kind of, you know, put to the word struggle. Struggle nahi kiya to kuch nahi kiya. You know, बहुत struggle किया है मैंने. I am a struggler. Before I got here, I struggled. Why? I don't understand why is struggle on a pedestal. It's your journey. And your journey would mean you win at something, you lose at something, you fail at something, you taste success at something. But the point is, at the end of the day, they all add to your experiences. And your experiences end up making you the human being that you are. And eventually, a career becomes only a part of your human existence. Your career is not who you are. And the day we can define those two things, you will automatically learn how to put your phone down. You will automatically learn how to observe what's around you. You will automatically not allow yourself to have the wings and take flights of fantasy and disappear into these Maldivian holidays that, honest to God, I think all of us here are very privileged to have that space wherein people rely on our social media, our following, the people who may be influenced by what we say or do. If you become an influencer, influence people with your experience, not your struggle. Influence people with the fact that life will throw blows at you and you just become more and more combat to it. And that is the biggest reality check one can gain to oneself. And the better human being you become, the better influence you will be on other people, is all I think. And that is what defines journey or experience.
And we sometimes fail or sometimes do real good at those very instances.
Yeah, even your experiences teach you how to fail.
Yeah.
Your experiences are like, oh, that experience was a learning for me.
Suhani, you know, we're talking about the way the world perceives. I know, we've just established that a struggle is a pretty glorified word in that sense, but a lot of people, especially on social media and Instagram, look at other people's highlights and start comparing those with their behind the scenes. And your highlights are...
It's not a lot of people, it's everybody.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Your highlights include the likes of Kendall Jenner and, you know, big names really endorsing your jewelry. And again, how do you handle this this entire, because you know your backstory.
It's true. It's a little bit what Kubbra said, and I feel like that really. When you're working in a creative field, sometimes you don't know where you start and it starts, and it's just one big mush. Like for me, I don't know where I start and MISO ends. It's one, but at the same time, it's really important to remember, as she said, it's not who you are,
Right.
it's what you do. And there are a lot of very talented people, and I feel like the secret is that when you have that moment where you achieve something that is incredible, enjoy it, appreciate it, but then when somebody else does, like clap on the inside for someone else as well.
Right.
Like everybody has their day of recognition, and just because tomorrow Kendall wears somebody else's jewelry doesn't take away from the fact that I've done it as well. Like you've achieved something interesting and somebody else is going to achieve it as well. And if you can make peace with the fact that if everyone gets their share,
Right.
everyone is happy, and there is, I feel like, especially in the design world, it's very competitive.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's very important to see people
You would know.
not as an Instagram page, but as a person.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're your contemporaries, they're not your competition.
Right.
And when you see people do amazing things, it inspires you to do better.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm not competitive, everybody is.
Right.
But I just feel like, there was a few months ago, I met a few other jewelry designers, and I'd been looking at their page and this and that. And when you meet the person in real life, you're like, wait, this is just another person. She's just another girl. She has a life and hopes and dreams and dogs, and it's
Very importantly.
we're not so different. She's not an Instagram page. She's a person.
Yes. All right, Prerana, I have to ask you, in the midst of all the social media banter, it invariably features in every discussion that people have. Your life and your career, how much of social media influence is there?
I love social media.
Typical. Your mother added you on Facebook.
All right.
So I'm quite addicted, and to be honest, social media has helped me.
How?
So it's, for example, recent example, somebody from the World Bank, he was a co-panelist, and then we became friends. And then he saw my social media updates, and I got invited to an all-paid World Bank conference as a speaker.
How much on the work front has this been an impediment in your life? Has it been an impediment?
In fact, the work that we do is at Yes Foundation. The whole idea was to connect youth to social issues. And we realized with them, you can't lecture them and say, go volunteer, do this, do that. It has to be their own experience, and it has to be a challenge.
Right.
So in fact, we used films. We had a 101-hour social filmmaking challenge where at 6 o'clock in the morning, people wait for the topic. You get 2 topics. It could be on women, random acts of kindness, everyday heroes.
Okay.
And you have 4 days to make the film. The film is an excuse. It's more as to what happens when you make the film. Like this 21-year-old girl made a film on Pratima. She lives in Delhi on the road, rag picker, and she takes care of 300 dogs. She knows all their names, Chappal Chor and Kishore and all of that. And after she made the film on this lady, her life changed, because she was like, somebody who's staying on the road, has no support, can be such a source of, compassion and support. And then she did a crowdfunding campaign and collected some 81,000 and all of that. So what started with like 2,000 people in 1 year went on to become 13 lakh, 1.3 million across 2,500 cities and towns.
Right.
And then we used media and we used films for good. So I believe truly in the power of film.
Yeah, no, I think it's also the power of storytelling. It's just the power of storytelling. I think the reason why a panel discussion comes in together and kind of moves in a particular direction is because we all have stories to bring, our own experiences that we bring, and they have the power to move.
let's talk about mental health a little bit. The question is, do you have dark days? Because you sometimes see your mistakes out louder than anyone else.
I think it's definitely part and parcel with just life for everyone. But definitely in the space, in this industry, it can be very anxiety prone. I mean, I definitely have my days where I can't get out of bed because, you know, someone said something mean on social media, or, you know, whatever it is, some work has gone wrong, and I think because it's highlighted for us so much more, it can be really dark and depressing. But I think that everybody really has the same battles.
Sure.
So because ours are under a microscope, does it make them worse? I don't know, but yeah, they might feel worse for us. Maybe that's very interesting for people. It's not very interesting for me. But as a model, I think it's like any other job that you do.
Yeah.
Yes, was I good at posing in swimwear? Did I dream of doing that as a young girl? No. But it made me a lot of money, and it allowed me to fund my business.
Right.
It allowed me to employ many people. It allowed me to open stores across the country. It allowed me to build a brand in India, and I've done that all by myself, and that's
Fabulous.
because of what modeling has given me. So I definitely don't want to take anything away from that platform.
Yeah.
And I think that whatever it is that you do that leads you to your end goal is good for you. You know, whether it be modeling, whether it be, you know, Kubbra tomorrow, like she said, could be an entrepreneur or whatever it might be. I think everyone's journey is different, and that was mine.
I feel like you just need to say, I'm taking the day off. That's really hard to do sometimes, but that's literally what it takes. And that's one of the reasons I love getting on a plane.
Right.
Because your phone's off, there's no Wi-Fi, you can binge watch movies for 8 hours straight.
So yeah, so I also have dark days, and what I do is I use meditation, or sometimes I just observe what I'm feeling. And earlier I used to wait for, let it get out, I want to be happy again.
Yeah.
But now I feel that through meditation and to letting go, like, I'm feeling this, yes, I'm feeling this. I feel those dark days are good. In a way, it helps me to be more real.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, if you have cracks, there are spaces then for light to enter.
Right.
So I feel closer to God.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
You know, I was having this conversation because I was very close to depression right here in my house, where my brother spoke to me one day. He reached out, and I was in Delhi. And he called me, and trust me, he is the funniest guy I know. He's the guy who will make sure that he brings the smile, the laughter, in no matter what you do, and no matter how off you feel. And you always think that this guy can never be in a situation so adverse. And I was in Delhi, and he called me, and he said, I'm standing on the 10th floor, I'm standing at home, Didi, and I want to jump off. And that was a moment of realization. So I backtracked his steps, made sure that I was able to do whatever I could, considering the distance that we had, asked him to drink water. And every single time I play this story in my mind, I realize that when somebody says that they're not up for it, please do not tell them it will be okay.
Okay.
It will not be okay until it feels okay. So do not say it will be okay. At that time, that person only wants to hear, I am there for you. And you can tell me whatever you want, and we will go through this together, and you are not alone. The second thing that I have realized along with meditation that really, really helps is speaking to a counselor. And I realized this when this crazy thing called Sacred Games happened to me. Everybody reached out to me. Everybody wanted a picture. Everybody wanted me there. Everybody. And I was like, this is all I've wanted in my life. But 1 second, even this much joy is driving me crazy. So I actually picked a moment and initiative of my own to speak to a counselor, and 99% of the times it's effective to speak to a counselor when at your happiest high,
Right.
as compared to meeting a counselor when you are at your lowest low.
So you can make sense of the counseling.
Yeah. Always start when you're at the top. When you're feeling your best, speak to a counselor. Because we do not regard enough credit to people who are willing to help us. It's a simple question. You have a cold, you'll take a crocin. You have a flu, you will take steam. At some point, you need to see somebody who knows better than what you know. Rely on that support. There's nothing wrong with it. And lastly, please tell yourself this 1,000 times and believe it when you say it. When I said this, Danish was depressed, and I mean clinically depressed. हाँ, तुम्हारी इंडस्ट्री ऐसी है ना, हमारी इंडस्ट्री का कोई दोष नहीं है. Depression can happen to anybody doing anything, anywhere in life. But the point is, it hits you harder and hits you closer when your foundation gets shaken. So the idea of not avoiding, but dealing with depression is like dealing with success, is like dealing with failure, it's like dealing with life. It's just something that comes to you because we've become a generation of anxious, worrisome people. We like to give importance to the thought that could upset us the most. And then we start building this. And eventually, sooner than we know, it's caught up with us and consumed us. So when that happens, how do you deal with that phase of your life is more important than blaming what you do, who your friends are. मैंने तो कहा था बात मत करो. I told you don't hang out with these people. I told you don't eat tub of ice cream. Told you don't watch nonsense on Netflix. It's so easy to give you, things back in return. But it's something you need to deal with. Find your own mechanism to deal with it. But 99% of the time, it helps when you speak to someone who knows better than you.
There is literally nothing else to say anymore. That's one of the most beautiful parting notes that we've got going.